It's got to be real.
Okay guys, what's going on? So wanted to do a video on Callum Smith. Yesterday he beat up a guy who James DeGale went 12 rounds with, and to be honest though, I'm not entirely sure who this guy was, who he faced. The division he's in it was a stacked division once upon a time, but at this moment in time it's not very stacked. There's James DeGale, and you're gonna struggle to find many other fighters in the division. Now the thing is with Callum Smith, he's an undefeated fighter. And I've seen him box, and he's beat Rocky Fielding. He's beat this guy whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because I think it's disrespectful to try and pronounce a guy's name who you can't really pronounce properly. But yeah, he's beat this guy. But to be honest, with watching Callum Smith in this fight, there seems to be a lot of hype, as there is with British boxers, Be Real TV, and I've got to keep it real, yeah? With British boxing, the thing is that the UK get behind their fighters a lot, and they hype them to a point where sometimes they shouldn't be hyped up to that level. And the thing is that Callum Smith, obviously, no disrespect to him, I've nothing but respect to him. But obviously on Be Real TV over here, what we do is we talk about boxing, we analyse fighters, and because that's what people want to see. That's what this channel's built upon. So I'm going to do it, just if a few people knock it, a few fighters knock it, or they don't like it, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop, because a lot of people obviously want to hear what I've got to say about this. And on this topic now, look, first of all, the qualities of Callum Smith. I think he's got some power in his shots, he's got decent hand speed, and he's a tall unit. But I mean, really, he has some crack. He's got some decent combinations, but really that's where the praise ends. And in terms of the criticism, I can't criticize James DeGale as much, because James DeGale, now I'll tell you, see, in boxing, right, in British boxing, at this moment in time, there's a few fighters out there who don't fight in the typical UK British style, but the majority of fighters fight in the typical British UK style. Callum Smith is another one of them. And this is British boxing is evolving now. For many years, there's only been the only camp which I can really think of which have a unique style, a very unique style, is the Ingle camp. Apart from that, we haven't seen any sort of trainers come out and give their fighters a chance on the elite level. There's a few exceptions of a few fighters. I'm going to name the fighters. Tyson Fury is the number one fighter who we can say, and the whole team Fury I think is brilliant. The reason I like the Fury camp so much is because the style that they have. I picked Fury to beat Klitschko, which was not an easy prediction to make, but I saw a lot of things in if I saw Fury and thought that he was a typical UK British fighter, and I'm going to tell you that what the problems are with the typical UK British fighter in a minute. But Callum Smith is definitely a typical UK style fighter. Another example would be someone like Luke Campbell, typical UK British fighter. And these British fighters, they do well in the amateur game, but when they step up to the elite professional level, a lot of the times they get exposed. Of recent, there's been a few fighters who have been showing capability to be excellent, brilliant fighters. Amir Khan, when he started, was a typical British fighter, but because he's gone to America, he's altered his style drastically. Kell Brook from Day Dot has not been a typical British style fighter. So let me just go back and tell you some fighters, not all of them, but some fighters who I've viewed and I think that they're really good and not your typical British style, and I think that they do well on the elite level, or they will do well on the elite level. The first one is Tyson Fury, obviously. Brilliant, excellent fighter, totally not your typical UK style. He knows how to fight on the inside, he's very good on the outside, moves his head, doesn't come in straight lines, and he knows how to angle out, he knows how to pivot, and a lot of things. Okay, the second fighter I'm going to say is David Haye. David Haye is not your typical UK style at all. Got a bob and weave style, likes to move out, throw combinations to the body, follow up to the head. Different, very different. We're going to skip a few weight divisions and we're going to go to James Chunky DeGale. And I'm also going to say George Groves. These two fighters also don't have a typical UK style. Now, it doesn't mean that these sort of fighters are always going to be the best and elite, but I'm just telling you that they've got different styles. Something that, you know, Britain, the typical British style of fighting, I'm talking like 90% of fighters have this typical style. Ricky Hatton was a fighter who didn't have it. He was a fighter who used to fight on the inside, and you see this is the consensus in British boxing, is that when you fight on the inside and you're known as a brawler, and boxing is considered on the outside. But I mean, boxing technically is very beautiful on the inside, and a prime example of that is Andre Ward. Andre Ward knows how to fight on the inside, and he doesn't keep it so much on the outside all the time. He knows how to fight on the inside, and the thing is that fighting on the inside is a very complex and tactical game, but you need to know it. You can't just stay. I mean, pretty much any trainer who knows anything about boxing can teach you to box on the outside, but it's a matter of keeping your opponent on the outside. How do you do that? How do you keep your opponent at range? How do you pivot off the ropes? And then how do you fight on the inside as well? I mean, a lot of trainers don't know about that. I mean, they might be involved in boxing all their lives, but it doesn't mean that you could be a fighter all your life. I know plenty of fighters who know nothing about boxing. So this is the thing, right? Look, now I'm just gonna keep going down in the weight divisions. Once we skip James DeGale and George Groves, I think we'd have to go to Kell Brook and Amir Khan. I think they're fighters who are very unique, don't fight in the typical British UK style. And then maybe someone like, if you want to count Carl Frampton, he's not your typical British fighter, fights a bit different. But apart from that, I'd say most fighters, and I'm not even too sold on Carl Frampton being totally different. He's like training and you could say he's Irish. But irrespective, yeah, look, most of these fighters, right, the problem is that when they go up in class, is they put their hands up, and this is what I'm seeing with Callum Smith. They put their hands up and they stand there, okay, and they're stationary. They're good on the pads, they look good on the bags. But when they step up in class, right, what happens is they face fighters with footwork. They face fighters who know how to duck, bob, weave and use angles. They face fighters who know how to utilize the ring. Whereas these fighters, and Callum Smith is a prime example of this, he's a fighter who likes, he's a tough guy, right? Yeah, and no disrespect to Callum Smith, I don't want this to be confused as a hate video, because it's not. But you'll see eventually Callum Smith will face fighters who like to throw hooks, who like to pivot, use the ring, know how to rotate their opponent, know how to use their footwork, know how to control range, know how to use their jab, know how to measure. And what will happen is Callum Smith, he'll be coming in straight lines and he'll face a fighter who will go to the body, who will pivot and eventually break him down and get a stoppage. And what you'll see is he'll freeze at that level, and you see it again and again and again and again, that when they step up against fighters who have that bob and weave tough style and have the style of of fighting on the inside, that most British fighters just can't handle it and they don't know what to do with it. And I can't understand why it hasn't been fixed. I think it's improving in Britain, and obviously Britain has gone well above and beyond in recent times in boxing terms, and you'll see again and again the common trend of the fighters who are making it. Either they're training in America or their styles are totally different. I mean, there's a few who have the typical UK style, but they will get exposed at some point in time. I'm not going to name any names, but there are world champions in there, in the different divisions, who are so-called British champions. You know what I mean? There's quite a lot of them. I mean, you've got to rate Kell Brook, because although he is pretty much a British champion, he did beat Sean Porter, and Sean Porter's no easy guy to beat. And for him to do that, just again, even if it is against one opponent, you've got to give Kell Brook full 100% credit, and you've got to rate Kell Brook that he did that. And I really like Kell Brook's style of fighting. It's different, it's unique. He fights southpaw, he fights orthodox, he knows how to bang on the inside a little bit, and he's quite measured and calculated as Kell Brook. And he knows how to utilize the ring, and the footwork thing is the main thing, is that he knows how to use angles, and most of these fighters don't know how to use angles. And I'm going to tell you off the bat, I don't think Callum Smith's going to go very far. He'll probably win a WBC belt against someone. He'll probably maybe do better than that, and he'll probably get a few defenses against someone's. But I mean, when he faces someone like James DeGale, when he faces the elite of the elite, or when he fights some good fighters, he will take multiple losses, and you will see him struggling on the elite level unless he changes trainers, unless he trains in a different manner, changes his style. I've seen enough of him to know now that he is an excellent fighter and he's got plenty of grit and plenty of heart, but technically he is going to struggle on the elite level. You're going to see it, I promise you. But let me know what you think. I'm going to go through a lot of British fighters, and we're going to do a lot of videos, and I'm going to give my take on these fighters, and say it like it is. Comment section below, subscribe as always, let me know what you think in a bit.